ABC News Radio.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says the Ukraine remains determined to liberate all of its territory despite Vladimir Putin's declaration that 4 occupied regions would forever be part of Russia. In his nightly address, Mr. Zelensky said the path for his nation is difficult but clear, and he's confident of victory. He said the Ukrainian army is making significant progress in the east, where the Russian-held city of Liman is reported to be almost encircled. Mr. Zelensky added that negotiations with Russia will only be possible once there is a new leader in the Kremlin. Post-tropical Hurricane Ian is battering the US state of South Carolina, with storm surges threatening low-lying coastal areas and winds knocking down trees and power lines. More than 140,000 residents have lost electricity as the intense storm moves inland. Further south in Florida, people are counting the cost of Ian, with 17 confirmed deaths and authorities fearing the toll will rise. The fire chief of Miami-Dade County, Ray Jadler, says residents of many of the worst-hit islands in southern Florida may have to be rescued by boat or helicopter.
Quite a few islands are going to be inaccessible for months, if not up to a year. And I say that because I'm not sure if many of the other countries are experiencing what we're experiencing, supply chain issues.
At home, the Queensland Police Union has defended the actions of 2 officers after a man was fatally shot overnight at Airlie Beach. Authorities say the man in his 20s was initially talking with officers before he approached them with a knife. Police opened fire and the man suffered gunshot wounds to his chest and died at the scene. QPU's Ian Levers says the officers were protecting their lives.
When you're in a certain proximity, a firearm is the only option to preserve your life. They do not want to see a murdered police officer. And both of these officers, who are males, they're both married, they're both family men. No one wants to see that happen.
Queensland Police are still searching for the perpetrators of a drive-by shooting on the Gold Coast. Police say the victim was a 20-year-old Brisbane man who was walking along Fernie Avenue in Surfers Paradise with 2 friends at about 4:30 this morning. A single shotgun round was discharged from a passing car, hitting him in the chest. He's in a critical condition in hospital. Superintendent Scott Knowles says officers have found the car involved.
At this point in time, police have located the vehicle. The vehicle was actually a stolen vehicle from Maroubra Downs on the 29th of September. We've located the vehicle at Pallara, where it was engulfed in flames.
Optus has taken out full-page ads in major Australian newspapers to apologise for last week's data breach. The telco says it's deeply sorry the cyber attack happened on their watch, and they'll work hard to regain customer trust. Optus says it's heard the message that it needs to communicate more clearly and has set up a dedicated page on its website where affected customers can stay informed on what actions they need to take. The federal opposition is welcoming changes to COVID-19 isolation rules, arguing it's a positive step for the country. National Cabinet has scrapped the 5-day mandatory isolation period for people who test positive to the virus. Medical experts are warning the virus is still highly infectious and removing the isolation period immediately is dangerous. But Shadow Home Affairs Minister Karen Andrews has told Channel 9 it's the next step towards returning to some sort of normality.
Process is always going to be an issue. I think there's a lot of preparation work that needs to be done. Was it done? Maybe not as well as it should have been. However, the outcome is that there's a further relaxation. I think that's a positive thing.
The Victorian government has hit back at a bold plan announced by the Victorian Greens to tackle housing affordability. The Greens have pledged to build 200,000 public and affordable housing units over a decade, but will introduce a levy on banks to help pay for the major housing promise. Victoria's Government Minister, Ben Carroll, says the focus should be reducing the costs of living for Victorians, not increasing it.
I think in the middle of a cost of living crisis, to be a Greens political party actively talking about putting on levies, we know that will impact down the line everyday Victorians.
Lauren Jackson has bowed out of international basketball with a medal at the Women's World Championship in Sydney. Jackson contributed a game-high 30 points as Australia outclassed Canada in the playoff for third place, winning 95-65. The Opals overcame the disappointment of a 2-point semi-final loss to China the night before by snaring the bronze medal in convincing fashion. 41-year-old Jackson earlier confirmed it would be her international swan song after coming out of retirement earlier this year. Canada and the United States are playing for gold. To the weather now, the current temperatures in Brisbane, it's 23 degrees, in Sydney now 18. Canberra, you're on 13 degrees, it's 17 in Melbourne, Hobart 14, Adelaide 20, in Perth 25 and in Darwin now 27 degrees. Stay with us here on ABC News Radio as we take you to our broadcast partners at the BBC.